Mr. Chen-Williams, where did you get this diplomatic passport?
It was issued by the U.S. State Department when I was appointed ambassador to Malawi 4 years ago.
We need to verify its authenticity. We've had fraudulent diplomatic credentials before.
The man in that secondary inspection room is Ambassador Dr. Marcus Chen-Williams, 48 years old, U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of Malawi for 4 years, 22 years in the Foreign Service, 6 languages, Georgetown, Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Deputy Chief of Mission in China, political officer in France, economic officer in Kenya. He has negotiated with presidents. He has managed $200 million in foreign aid programs. He has built bilateral relationships that advanced American interests across East Africa. He has received the State Department Superior Honor Award twice. He was returning home from his posting. His wife works for the World Health Organization. He was supposed to clear customs, meet his State Department escort, and go to a classified briefing. Instead, TSA Supervisor Cooper detained him for over an hour because Cooper looked at a black man with a diplomatic passport and decided the credentials must be fake. This will cost $18.6 million. It will end multiple careers. It will create an international diplomatic incident. It will require a formal apology to a foreign government. And it will prove that even diplomatic immunity cannot protect you from an officer who has already decided what you are based on what you look like. Leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel if you believe that ambassadors with valid credentials should never be detained simply because they are black. 4 years before this detention, Marcus Chen-Williams stood in the Secretary of State's office for his ambassadorial swearing-in. His wife Aisha beside him, his children watching. His mother's hand on the Bible. He recited the oath. I, Marcus Chen-Williams, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. 22 years in the Foreign Service led to that moment. He started as a junior economic officer in Nairobi, learned Swahili, wrote cables about agricultural markets, then Paris as political officer handling European Union negotiations. French became his 4th language. Then Beijing as Deputy Chief of Mission, managing 300 staff coordinating on trade and human rights. He completed his doctorate at Harvard Kennedy School. His dissertation on economic development in sub-Saharan Africa was published and cited in congressional testimony. The Africa Bureau called. Ambassador to Malawi, 4-year posting. He accepted. Malawi is landlocked, 13 million people, one of the poorest countries in the world. Also an emerging democracy, strategic partner, recipient of substantial U.S. aid. The Senate confirmed him by voice vote. He received the rank of Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary, the highest diplomatic rank, carrying full immunity under the Vienna Convention. He presented credentials to Malawi's President Chakwera. The president said, "Ambassador Chen-Williams, we welcome you and look forward to strengthening our partnership with the United States." For 4 years, Chen-Williams managed agricultural development, healthcare initiatives, education funding, trade negotiations. He mediated political disputes during Malawi's constitutional crisis. He learned Chichewa well enough to give speeches without translation. His children attended international school in Lilongwe. Aisha coordinated WHO programs across 3 countries. His departure was ceremonial. President Chakwera hosted a farewell dinner, called him a true friend of Malawi, presented him with a carved walking stick. Embassy staff gathered at the airport, diplomatic courtesies, handshakes, the kind of departure senior diplomats receive after successful postings. He boarded Ethiopian Airlines Flight 501, Lilongwe to Addis Ababa to Washington Dulles, business class, diplomatic courtesy. The manifest marked him DIPL. He spent the flight finishing his transition memo, classified secret, 147 pages covering every program, every negotiation, everything his successor needed to know. The plane landed 12 minutes early. He gathered his carry-on diplomatic pouch with classified documents, suit jacket, phone. He felt good. Coming home, new position, family reuniting. He had no idea Dennis Cooper was about to turn his homecoming into a detention. The Dulles arrivals corridor at 3:03 p.m. Passengers from 6 international flights converging on passport control. Ambassador Chen-Williams moved toward the diplomatic passport line. He waited while a French diplomat cleared, then stepped forward. "Good afternoon." He placed his diplomatic passport on the counter. Ambassador Marcus Chen-Williams, returning from posting in Malawi. CBP Officer Morrison scanned the passport, looked at Chen-Williams, looked at the passport again. Something shifted in his expression. "Where are you coming from, sir?" "Lilongwe, Malawi, via Addis Ababa. I was posted there 4 years as U.S. ambassador. I'm rotating back to Washington." Morrison studied the photo, looked at Chen-Williams. Back to the photo. The photo was 4 years old, hair grayer now, weight lost from malaria, but unquestionably him. "Step aside to secondary inspection, sir." Chen-Williams felt the first pulse of wrong. "Is there an issue?" "That's a diplomatic passport. I'm a U.S. ambassador. Secondary inspection, this way." In 22 years through Rome, Beijing, Paris, Nairobi, London, he'd been pulled for random screening twice, both times apologetically. "Sorry, Mr. Ambassador, computer flag, we'll have you through in a minute." This felt different, deliberate. He stepped to secondary. Morrison picked up a phone. "I need a supervisor, passport issue." That was how it started, with doubt. With the assumption that a black man with a diplomatic passport required extra scrutiny. With the decision that verification mattered more than credentials. Dennis Cooper arrived 14 minutes later. The detention that should have lasted 2 minutes would last 65. Sarah Chen checked her phone. 3:18 p.m. Ambassador Chen-Williams's flight landed at 2:47. He should have been in arrivals by 3:10. Her phone rang. State Department Operations Center. "Sarah, we're receiving an alert from Dulles TSA, diplomatic passport holder in secondary inspection." "Chen-Williams Marcus, that's your greeting?" Her stomach dropped. "Yes?" "Ambassador Chen-Williams, what do you mean detained? TSA Supervisor flagged the passport for verification. They're holding him. Get to that checkpoint now." Sarah ran. She reached the barrier at 3:22, showed her credentials. "I'm here to facilitate clearance of Ambassador Marcus Chen-Williams. Where is he?" Cooper arrived, blocking her view. "We're conducting verification. The individual will be released when we complete our process. The individual is a U.S. ambassador returning from a 4-year posting. I work for the Africa Bureau. I can verify his identity right now. We have protocols." "Protocols?" "He has diplomatic immunity under the Vienna Convention. You cannot detain a diplomat without cause. We're verifying document authenticity. His documents are authentic. I'm his escort. Let me verify." "Step back from the secure area." Sarah called Operations Center. "They're refusing release. Conference the Federal Security Director immediately. Within minutes, conference call with State Legal, Operations Center, TSA Management, DHS Civil Rights." The Federal Security Director issued a direct order. "Release the diplomat. That's Ambassador Chen-Williams. State confirmed. Release him now," Cooper responded. "Sir, I have concerns about document authenticity." "That's an order. Release him immediately." Cooper persisted. "I'd like to complete my inspection. You're violating diplomatic immunity. Release him now." At the Malawian embassy, Ambassador Chisomo Banda was reviewing a trade agreement when her deputy knocked urgently. "Ma'am, urgent. Ambassador Chen-Williams detained at Dulles." "Detained? Marcus? The U.S. ambassador to our country?" "Yes, ma'am. TSA holding him. Over 40 minutes. Questioning his credentials." Banda felt the implications. Chen-Williams had been Malawi's connection to Washington for 4 years. President Chakwera knew him personally. He'd negotiated hundreds of millions in aid. He'd mediated disputes. He'd represented American interests while respecting Malawian sovereignty. Draft an official note of protest. Immediately. The government of Malawi expresses grave concern about detention of a sitting U.S. ambassador who served in our country with distinction. Make clear this is unacceptable. Her deputy left. Banda called state protocol directly. "This is Ambassador Banda of Malawi. I understand Ambassador Chen-Williams has been detained at Dulles. I need an explanation immediately." At 3:52 p.m., 65 minutes after landing, Ambassador Chen-Williams was released. Sarah Chen was waiting. "Mr. Ambassador, I'm so sorry. This should never have happened. his expression controlled, professional, anger beneath. "I'd like to go to state now. I have a 5 o'clock briefing. Then I need legal counsel about what just happened." They walked to the car in silence. Sarah drove. She saw him staring out the window, jaw tight. "For what it's worth, sir, I tried everything. They wouldn't listen." "I know. Thank you." Pause. "They asked if I looked like an ambassador. That was the question. Not whether my credentials were valid, whether I looked the part." Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. "That's in the body camera footage. Good. I want it documented, every second. Because this cannot happen again." At 4:07 p.m., Malawi's note of protest was delivered. The government of Malawi expresses grave concern regarding detention of His Excellency Ambassador Marcus Chen-Williams. Detention of a sitting ambassador represents a serious breach of diplomatic courtesy and raises questions about treatment of diplomatic personnel within the United States. By 4:30 p.m., state legal opened formal investigation. By 5:15 p.m. CNN, U.S. ambassador detained at Dulles, diplomatic incident under investigation. By 6 p.m., international news, Cooper's incident report discovered in litigation became crucial evidence. The typed text described detention in bureaucratic language. Passenger presented black passport claiming diplomatic status. Initial observation raised concerns about whether holder matched diplomatic profile for ambassadorial rank. The handwritten margin note told a different story. In Cooper's handwriting, seemed too young and wrong demographic for ambassador position, wanted to be thorough. Initials DC, that note became Exhibit A. Wrong demographic for ambassador position in Cooper's own handwriting, irrefutable proof of bias. Body camera transcript captured the key exchange at 15:32 Eastern Standard Time. Cooper to CBP Officer Patterson. "Take a look at this passport. Tell me what you think." Patterson examined it. "Security features look legitimate," Cooper pressed. "But look at the holder. Does he look like a U.S. ambassador to you?" Patterson hesitated. "What do you mean?" Cooper continued. "How many black U.S. ambassadors have you ever seen? I think this might be sophisticated fraud. The passport's too good, either real or expensive fake. That exchange cost TSA $18.6 million. Does he look like a U.S. ambassador became the smoking gun? Not about credentials, about appearance, about race." State Department cable from Diplomatic Security to Secretary of State, sent January 16, 2024. Subject: Unlawful detention of Ambassador Chen-Williams. Summary: Ambassador detained 65 minutes despite valid credentials. 5 critical findings. Cooper has 7 prior complaints, 5 involving passengers of color. Cooper's notes contain phrase, "wrong demographic for ambassador." State representative denied access 40 minutes. Release only after Federal Security Director direct order. Malawi filed formal diplomatic protest. Assessment: clear racial profiling of diplomatic personnel, international relations damage, substantial legal liability, recommend immediate settlement negotiations, and personnel accountability. Malawi's diplomatic note was official statement from sovereign nation. It stated grave concern regarding detention, noted Chen-Williams served with distinction, called detention a serious breach of diplomatic courtesy, raising fundamental questions about treatment of diplomatic personnel. It concluded with 3 requests: formal explanation, assurance of appropriate treatment in accordance with international law, accountability for responsible personnel. When foreign governments file official protests, state takes immediate notice. No longer just civil rights case. International incident. Ambassador Chen-Williams testified on day 4. "I've been a diplomat 22 years, represented the U.S. in 6 nations, speak 6 languages, negotiated with presidents, parliaments, prime ministers, managed complex situations, advanced American interests, and I never felt as powerless as in that secondary inspection room at Dulles on January 15, 2024. Because I was in my own country, holding credentials issued by my own government. Protected by diplomatic immunity under treaty, the U.S. ratified. And despite all that, treated like a criminal because a TSA supervisor looked at my face and decided I couldn't be who my passport said." Dennis Cooper asked the CBP examiner, Does he look like a U.S. ambassador to you? Not, do credentials check out? Not, are security features authentic? He asked if I looked like an ambassador. That question tells you everything. In Cooper's mind, ambassadors don't look like me. Despite Georgetown, Johns Hopkins, Harvard, 22 years distinguished service, 4 years successfully leading a diplomatic mission. None of it mattered. My face didn't match his mental image. Sarah Chen testified day 5. I was sent to provide VIP greeting for Ambassador Chen-Williams, standard for senior officers returning from postings. When I identified myself as his escort, told to step back from secure area. I explained I could verify identity immediately, offered conference calls. They refused every offer, 40 minutes on phone with Operations Center. At one point, State Legal, Operations Center, TSA Management, DHS Civil Rights, all on same call. Federal Security Director issued direct order to release Ambassador Chen-Williams. Direct order, Cooper argued. Said he wanted a complete inspection. Message absolutely clear. Cooper and team couldn't believe a black man was U.S. ambassador. Kept looking for reasons to doubt what evidence showed. Doubted diplomatic passport. Doubted credentials. Doubted state officer confirming identity. Doubted everything except initial assumption based on race. Cooper cross-examined day 7. Attorney. Mr. Cooper, your note says, wrong demographic for ambassador position. What did you mean? Cooper. Didn't mean it the way it sounds. Attorney. How did you mean it? Cooper. Situation seemed unusual. Attorney. You detained U.S. ambassador 65 minutes because seemed unusual. 7 prior complaints. 5 involving passengers of color. Nigerian diplomat 2021 under similar circumstances. See a pattern? Cooper. No response. Attorney. You asked Patterson, does he look like a U.S. ambassador? What answer expected? Cooper. Asking professional assessment. Attorney. Of what? Passport features or Ambassador Chen-Williams' appearance? Cooper. Both. Attorney. Federal Security Director ordered release. You argued. How much longer plan to detain diplomat with immunity? Cooper. Being thorough. Attorney. 65 minutes thorough. 5 minutes call Operations Center not thorough. Listening to state officer physically present not thorough. Chose 65 minutes unlawful detention over 5 minutes verification. Why? Cooper. No answer. Professor Rebecca Morrison, Georgetown Law, testified on Vienna Convention. Diplomatic immunity fundamental. Diplomats must travel freely, perform duties without interference. Vienna Convention, 1961, U.S. ratified 1972, establishes diplomats inviolable. Cannot be detained, searched, prosecuted without home government's waiver. Ambassador Chen-Williams held valid credentials, diplomatic passport, full immunity. Once presented credentials, TSA had no legal authority to detain. Detention itself, treaty violation, regardless duration or reason. Why foreign governments like Malawi filed protests? If U.S. won't respect own diplomats' immunity, why should others respect American diplomats abroad? Convention works because reciprocal. When we violate, undermine safety of every American diplomat overseas, Ambassador Banda testified via video conference. Known Marcus Chen-Williams 4 years. Served my country exceptional skill. Met regularly with President, coordinated hundreds of millions development assistance, navigated sensitive situations with cultural awareness, diplomatic acumen. When learned, detained at Dulles, shocked. Man held rank Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary. Possessed diplomatic immunity. Completed successful 4-year posting. Detention not merely inappropriate. Violation fundamental diplomatic protocol. Not just insult personally. Insult to my government. Worked closely 4 years. Considered trusted partner. Insult to diplomatic corps. Violation of Vienna Convention governing how civilized nations treat diplomatic representatives. Filed formal protest because completely unacceptable under international law. Simply don't detain ambassadors, fundamental to international relations. Convention exists precisely to prevent this. When U.S. violates principles with own diplomats, sends message to international community about how seriously America takes treaty obligations. Jury deliberated 6 hours. Liable all counts. Settlement reached 14 months after incident. $18.6 million. $6.6 million to Ambassador Chen-Williams for civil rights violations, unlawful detention, violation diplomatic immunity, intentional infliction, emotional distress, interference with diplomatic functions. $12 million punitive damages against TSA and Cooper personally. Reflected jury determination violation, willful international incident warranted substantial punishment to deter future violations. Individual consequences severe, immediate. Cooper terminated TSA for cause. Barred federal security positions. Personally liable, $500,000. 7 prior complaints reopened, all found merit, separate settlements. Criminal investigation for violating federal law prohibiting interference diplomatic personnel. Patterson suspended 180 days without pay. Required 300 hours diplomatic protocol, anti-bias training, demoted from senior officer, transferred non-passenger role, resigned 10 months later. Martinez, 60-day suspension, bias training. Cooperation. Providing honest testimony, mitigating factor. Became TSA Diversity Inclusion Liaison, Dulles, Federal Security Director forced resign, inadequate oversight, Cooper's pattern, failed implement corrective action after 2021 Nigerian diplomat incident, systemic reforms comprehensive, mandatory. Federal level, DHS TSA, new protocols, all officers 80 hours mandatory diplomatic protocol training. Diplomatic passport holders no longer detained for verification, immediate state contact required. Secondary inspection. Diplomatic personnel requires supervisor approval plus state notification 5 minutes. Pattern tracking flags, officers, multiple complaints, passengers of color, automatic review, retraining. Annual audits, detention demographics, race, nationality, passport type. Independent Oversight Board state representation reviews all diplomatic incidents. State reforms, VIP greeting protocols strengthened, officers' checkpoint access credentials, 24-hour hotline diplomats experiencing issues, ports entry, diplomatic security embedded major airports, quarterly training TSA, CBP covering ambassadorial roster with photos. Immediate escalation protocol. Diplomat detention triggers automatic secretary notification. International accountability. U.S. committed enforcing Vienna Convention protections. All ports entry. Formal written apology. Malawi government. Diplomatic channels. Banda received personal apology. Secretary during state meeting. Incident reported UN as diplomatic protocol failure requiring systemic correction. Cooper pattern investigation revealed broader problems. All 7 complaints reopened, thoroughly investigated. 6 meritorious, 1 inconclusive, lack evidence. Settlements totaling 4.2 million previous complainants. Pattern clear. Cooper disproportionately questioned credentials Black, African, Middle Eastern travelers. 2 Nigerian travelers detained 2019 to 2021 came forward, received settlements. 6 months after settlement, Ambassador Chen-Williams fully transitioned Deputy Assistant Secretary State African Affairs, position he was rotating to when detained. Used settlement portion established Chen-Williams Foundation Diplomatic Diversity, already funding scholarship students of color pursuing foreign service careers. Provides legal support diplomats facing discrimination, advocates diversity diplomatic appointments, accountability when diplomatic personnel mistreated. Last month testified Senate Foreign Relations Committee racial bias security screening. Testimony instrumental advancing TSA Accountability Act currently moving through Congress. Proposed legislation requires demographic reporting all secondary inspections, independent review racial disparities, detention, mandatory diplomatic protocol training, fast-track complaint process diplomats. Recently published Foreign Affairs article, Diplomatic Immunity Except While Black, How Racial Profiling Undermines U.S. Foreign Policy. Already required reading Foreign Service Institute incoming diplomatic personnel. Still carries diplomatic passport from incident. Keeps desk drawer reminder what happened, why reform work must continue. Recent interviews, speaks measured conviction, represented U.S. 6 countries, 3 continents, negotiated treaties, managed crises, built relationships, advanced American interests, detained over our Dulles because TSA Supervisor looked blackface, couldn't reconcile preconceived image ambassador should look like. Not training failure. Institutional racism operating gut assumption level. Damages not just individuals. Damages America's standing world when treat-owned diplomats this way. Sarah Chen promoted Director State Protocol last month, handling incident recognized exemplary, now oversees all diplomatic courtesies, port entry protocols entire state. Personally implemented new system ensures VIP greeters checkpoint access credentials, direct communication lines TSA supervisors, currently training all country desk officers intervention protocols, diplomatic emergency procedures. Training sessions about incident, frustration remains evident. Watched senior diplomat 22 years serving country distinction, treated criminal because credentials didn't match stereotype. Took 40 minutes. Direct order. Federal Security Director secure release tells everything how deep bias runs these systems. Fixed protocols. But protocols only work, people follow them. People only follow if see past assumptions what diplomats supposed look like. Banda continues, serve Malawi's ambassador U.S., maintains close professional relationship Chen-Williams. Last week co-authored Washington Post piece, when diplomats not safe from profiling, no one is. Successfully pushed inclusion anti-discrimination provisions, bilateral agricultural agreement currently negotiated Malawi, U.S. language, becoming standard all Malawian diplomatic accords. 2 months ago, spoke diplomatic conference incidents broader implications. Chen-Williams detained despite diplomatic credentials, immunity, state backing. If that authority, legal protection not enough prevent detention, what happens ordinary travelers color without protections? Incident exposed racial bias, operates even highest international relations levels. Showed no amount achievement, status fully protect people color from assumptions-based appearance. Cooper terminated TSA, faced criminal investigation. Investigation concluded 4 months ago without criminal charges. DOJ issued scathing report pattern discriminatory behavior. Remains personally liable, $500,000. Cannot work federal security. Filed bankruptcy last month. Deposition earlier this year gave testimony became smoking gun. When see someone claiming ambassador, expect look authoritative. Individual didn't match expected. Experience, ambassadors usually different. Attorney pressed what meant different, eventually admitted, usually white, usually older, usually just different what saw that day. Patterson resigned CBP 3 months ago after suspension non-passenger role. Now works private sector security consulting. Settlement negotiations provided victim impact statement court. Wrote, trained spot fraudulent documents, never properly trained actual diplomatic passports look like. Diplomatic protocol requires international law. Cooper expressed doubts credentials, deferred authority, experience. Should verified independently proper resources. Failed duty diplomat, principals fair treatment, travel through Dulles twice monthly now. Deputy Assistant Secretaries travel frequently coordinate policy across African continent. Every time through checkpoint, think that January afternoon. Cooper, asking if looked like ambassador. 65-minute secondary inspection while Sarah fought secure release. Diplomatic pouch almost opened violating international treaty. Body camera footage capturing every detention moment. Reforms followed real, substantial. Training mandatory, comprehensive. Oversight mechanisms exist, function. TSA officers. Dulles recognize me now. Not because famous, because detention became case study, training video. Told explicitly, don't let happen again. Now they know who I am. Means I'm safe travel through Dulles. But think about diplomat comes after me. One Cooper would have stopped if case hadn't ended career. One whose incident might not make international news. One might accept humiliation, move on because fighting seems impossible. That person wouldn't have Malawi government filing diplomatic protests their behalf. wouldn't have state legal building case, wouldn't have resources, platform, institutional support fight back effectively. 18.6 million settlement significant, reforms matter, will prevent future incidents. But fundamental question remains, what happens travelers without diplomatic immunity? Establish Chen-Williams Foundation help answer that. Fund legal support people facing discrimination ports entry, track patterns, TSA, CBP detention practices, push accountability when bias affects screening, advocate systemic change beyond just diplomatic personnel. Because if U.S. Ambassador Diplomatic Immunity International Treaty, not safe racial profiling, then college student traveling home studying abroad, business person returning international conference, family coming back vacation, definitely not safe. Until that fundamental reality changes, work not finished. Every time walk through Dulles, remember what happened secondary inspection room. Use that memory fuel ongoing fight accountability, reform. Because diplomatic immunity should mean something international law, but so should basic human dignity. Right now, far too many travelers' color neither provides adequate protection. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next story.